Hi guys, Chase here with Bite Size Success, and this is
Andrew.
Andrew's my best friend. We've actually done a couple of things previous to this YouTube channel. I just wanted to bring Andrew on because, he's my best friend. He has a passion for self-development just like I do. And in this video, we're going to be talking about having a growth mindset in this COVID-19 world. And so we just understand that a lot of the world is just really negative right now, and it's just really easy to kind of slip into that negative mindset, whereas we really want to take a more proactive approach and kind of give you some tools and tips on how to actually leverage this time for your benefit as opposed to using it to enable a negative mindset. We really want you to adapt and use that growth mindset. So, do you have any thoughts on that? Or
yeah, it's really, I thought one of the biggest things I've thought the past COVID pandemic that we've been in is this might be one of the very few times in history where no matter who you come in contact, people you don't even know, we all face at least the exact same problem. Mm-hmm. Even though our life is filled with a whole bunch of problems in itself, we're all facing the exact same problem of a pandemic, COVID-19. I thought that was very interesting because we all can relate during times like this, and I think that's also an encouragement too, because no matter who you run into, you can still be a light of positivity to those who might be struggling, who might be feeling like they're running in circles or maybe stagnant. And I think a lot of it has to stem with our mindset in regards to growth and what influences us as people in regards to kind of becoming stagnant as individuals during a pandemic.
And I completely agree. A lot of what's going on, it has to do with your mindset, right? And a lot that has to do with your mindset is what you're putting into it, right? There's I've mentioned on the channel before, garbage in, garbage out. Whatever you put into your mind, into your system, that's exactly what you get out. You don't have an amazing enough of a system, of a brain, of a mind, of a body to be able to take in negativity and then turn it into positivity in a very general sense. So when the world is the way it is, let me take it in a different direction. If you're constantly sitting on social media and kind of ingraining yourself with all the negativity that's out there, all the politics, all the extreme sides of everything, I would make an argument that's probably not going to be the best thing for your mindset, right? It's kind of hard to kind of take this time and like, oh no, I'm actually going to grow during this, I'm going to use this, I'm going to leverage this. When you're consuming all that negativity, all that stress, and just all the nastiness and the hate, and it's kind of an interesting point that you bring up where we do now technically have something in common with every stranger we've ever met. And even with other countries, people in other countries, we actually have this kind of platform to be able to bond over. And yeah, like Andrew said, I think it's important to actually use that, whereas I think a lot of us are kind of falling into that bad habit of actually using it to be angry and to fight, as opposed to actually be unified and to grow.
When we talk about influence, the people that are, let me just say, wherever you invest your time is almost kind of shapes who you become. Mm-hmm. Whether it's the people you are with, the type of people you surround yourself with. But what I wanted to kind of talk about that influence or sphere of influence is, listen, we live in a society where we are connected by our phones, our computers. I can literally search anything, perform business literally with my fingertips. And that's an amazing thing, but that's also a dangerous thing. And what I want to relate to that is the fact that because we're influenced with our phones and our computers, social media ties into a lot of that. And a lot of our news outlets, not many of us watch TV anymore. It really feeds into our feeds, our social media feeds. So what I'm trying to talk about is the fact that influence is such a powerful tool that can either be a positive or a negative thing in your life. And if you constantly feed yourself negative influence through your social media feeds, you are going to start becoming a negative person or start going down a path of negative mindset. I think a lot of people have come to the realization I think a lot of people have become okay with the idea of becoming stagnant during a pandemic. People on social media show that it's okay to be at home. There's been trends of people, just staying in their pajamas for months at a time, or weeks at a time, I should say. Not washing your hair for X amount of days. That's all funny, and that's all like fun and games, but when you start kind of becoming comfortable with the idea of becoming stagnant, and everyone on social media is okay because we're in a pandemic, then you start living a lifestyle that is not proactive. And I'm not talking about work, it could be just personal growth, but you have a stagnant mindset that because everyone, just like I mentioned earlier in this podcast, that no matter who you run into, we're all facing the exact same problem. The sphere of influence is becoming so powerful that is telling people it's okay to live a stagnant lifestyle. Then people at home are like, yeah, that's okay, everyone's doing it. Everyone's facing the same problem, so I'm gonna sit back, relax, and maybe tomorrow everything will change. And in all reality, I don't think that's gonna be changing. In fact, I think what used to be normal will not be normal. We have to live a new norm. And that's going to come with changes and all this stuff. And I'm not an expert with the COVID-19. I don't know how it's going to affect government, economy, and stuff like that. But I do know that we won't be seeing a new normal anytime soon. Or I should say our old normal anytime soon. We got to experience and have a growth mindset with the new normal and not let an idea of a pandemic and social media make you comfortable with the idea of not growing.
Yeah, I completely agree. I remember specifically there was this one. YouTube was advertising a lot in the heat of it, and there was this one YouTuber who I honestly I don't know who she is, but her little bit was all about, hey, it's okay if you feel overwhelmed. It's okay if you feel this. It's okay just to be at home and calm down and rest and relax. And I totally understand like where she's coming from and what she's trying to do, because everyone's a little bit overstimulated, or especially at the time a lot of people are overstimulated, and it's okay to kind of calm down and kind of regulate. But in a very general sense, if it turns into a habit and then that turns into your lifestyle, you're not going to be doing well when this is all over. And I feel like those habits need to kind of be ingrained and started with now. Right, you need to kind of change that mindset now, and like Andrew was saying, not use it to as an excuse to not grow, to not advance, to not become better, because a lot of your self-worth, a lot of your confidence, all that comes with growing and getting better. Even making mistakes and getting better. But if you are constantly feeding that side of you that is not growing, is not getting better, is not pursuing, is not advancing, then is not evolving, then you will continue down this kind of downward spiral, and you'll just be doing less and less and less, and at the same time your confidence and your esteem will also be kind of going down that spiral. So I think it's really important, exactly what Andrew was saying, is to kind of have that growth mindset and actually use this time positive, edit what's going into your mind, what you're spending your time on, and just being careful. Be careful.
Be careful with like what you make okay in your thought process. There's this insoluble problem theory that a lot of people fall into, and it's where, and we're experiencing it every day, it's where someone or a group of people find a specific or create a specific problem, whether it's valid or not valid in their life, and they make it the fundamental issue of why they're not growing. And so it's a really interesting theory, because we're seeing it, and like I was mentioning prior, is that people are picking one problem, and that problem that you're facing and I'm facing, that anyone I come into contact 6 feet apart has that exact same problem. That's the pandemic. That's COVID-19. So we're all creating a insoluble problem theory in our mindset. So we're saying, because there's a pandemic going on, we're making that, and I'm not saying it's invalid or not valid, but how valid is it for your own personal life? If you're in your home safely, distanced, everyone's healthy, everyone's been tested, etc., how valid is that COVID-19 in your life if you are in an environment that's safe for you? So are you going to utilize that excuse or that problem and define it or make it the foundation of why you're not growing? No, you shouldn't be. No one should be. I think you can grow as an individual and continue to have a growth mindset without utilizing or leveraging a pandemic. Now, this pandemic has thrown a lot of stuff off. There's been a lot of issues happening with jobs and companies, and you might have been laid off. You might not have been working. You might have lost a sale through a home sale, because you could have lost a lot of things. Health could have gone down the pipe. A lot of things could have happened. Yet, I feel like those are more obstacles in life rather than blaming it all on one bad year or even something such as the pandemic. So basically what I'm trying to say is be careful with what you build your foundation or be careful what problem you choose to, and be careful of letting it be a foundation of why you're not growing. Rather than let those problems be problems, stick with those problems, grow. If you fail, you learn, but don't let that problem define your mindset, and let you become stagnant.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up, because I've actually been doing a personal study in false association. And basically what I'm learning, what I'm experimenting with, is that we falsely associate certain experiences, right?
Yeah.
So for example, a really easy example, a personal story of mine. So for a very long time, it was very hard for me to get up early in the morning, right? And I always thought that it had to do with me having dessert, sugar before bed, not getting enough sleep, or something of that nature. And so I was associating the way I was feeling in the morning with what was happening the night previously. And so I would try to change the night previously in order to have a better morning, right? That kind of cause and effect. But it never worked out. The cause and effect never really worked out. And it wasn't until I was doing further research where I actually learned, I forget what the term is exactly, but I learned that if you hit the snooze button, your brain goes back to sleep, it enters into another hour and a half cycle. But if you wake up 10 minutes, 15 minutes, which is typical for a snooze, then your brain is actually technically asleep, and it takes about 4 hours to wake up.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense, because the way I described my feeling, the way I felt in the morning was I felt foggy. I felt like my brain was not operating at maximum capacity in the morning. Even if I worked out for an hour, my brain would still it just felt like it was catching up, and it wasn't until the afternoon where I actually woke up and I felt normal again. And so for the longest time I had that false association, where I was associating the way I was feeling with something that was incorrect. And it wasn't until I educated myself and I did further research that I was actually able to figure out the correct association. Now that principle applies to so many things, it's kind of insane. Whether you're, let me think of, I don't know, if you're in, no, I don't want to go that way, but I'll think of a couple other examples as we go on, because I wasn't even expecting to talk about this during this one. No, it's totally fine. But like to your point, it's like it's very easy for us to falsely associate, the lack of a growth mindset, with the world that we live in. Right? It's easy to, in layman's terms, it's easy to blame where we're at, where our mindset is at, based off of what's happening. But we have to remember that if we're going to use that as an excuse, we're giving that excuse power over us, right? So if we're going to use COVID-19 as, my life is terrible because of all this, I'm stressed and anxious and all this kind of stuff because of COVID, you're now giving COVID permission and power over you, and you're allowing it to stress you out. You're allowing it to give you anxiety. You're allowing it to slow you down. When there's other people who are going to take a different route, the growth mindset, there's other people who are actually using, they interpret this time as, oh, hey, I got laid off from my job. Guess what? Good. It's going to be tough. It's going to hurt. It's uncomfortable. But guess what? I'm going to use this time to learn a new skill that's going to be even more applicable, post-COVID-19 world. I'm going to use this time to read and educate myself more. I'm going to build a new asset. I'm going to learn how to build an online asset that'll make me money forever, or for the rest of my life, my retirement, whatever it is. There's so much that you can do with time. It's just how you associate what's going on in your life. And you have the successful people who will make those associations, they'll attach those associations with good things, and you have the people who will allow the negativity to kind of bring them down and hurt that growth mindset, and they'll associate it with bad things, with negative things, that'll just enable their lack of ability to take action and produce, whereas the other people, it'll be the complete opposite.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah. No, it's interesting, but totally true what you're saying. You know, I think so. It was interesting that right when this COVID-19 hit, I didn't know exactly what was entail, like what it would entail for our own personal lives, the world. But once I started realizing that there was going to be a different lifestyle, I immediately, and this is me personally, and this is kind of how I function, but I immediately had several goals I wanted to accomplish, and I didn't want to become stagnant. Becoming stagnant is one of my biggest fears. To kind of like just give a little example of my life, I emailed this gentleman yesterday. It was February of 2019, where I emailed this agent, a real estate agent, looking for a little bit of help or some sort of directions. And I was looking through my emails, and it literally says, "I'm sick of working hard in circles. I feel like I'm becoming stagnant." And I was just looking for some sort of advice. And he encouraged me to get my real estate license. That was a year ago.
Huh.
It's been a year. And I reached out to him, and I told him yesterday, I was emailing him as a thank you because I just did get my real estate license, or I passed my exam. And I was just looking back and looking at my mindset in 2019, before even the pandemic, and realizing, myself was scared, so I was reaching out to someone to figure out what I can be doing in my life to continue moving forward and growing and getting out of what I thought my personal life was becoming stagnant. So I've always kind of been like trying to figure out how I move to the next step and not become stagnant. And so when COVID-19 hit, I was like super scared that I was going to become stagnant, that my career that I have might stop or might be on a brief hold. And so I wanted to start doing things that I could walk away and look back and know that during this time I became and did something new and added to, I guess, maybe a new experience or a new learning experience in my life. And so right away I set goals, and I've accomplished a few of them. And I'll touch base on that a little bit later because I want to give some examples of, personal examples to show you guys, you can grow in this type of pandemic, even though certain options might not be available, or maybe the norm's not available, but the options are still there. But to kind of go back, is that I think the biggest thing that I really learned, or that I've been thinking about for the past few months, is that don't delay your growth. Again, it's having this negative mindset, or this sphere of influence that makes you comfortable with, maybe you're not putting a foundation of the pandemic as why you're not getting where you want. But a lot of people's like, I still want to grow, but I'm going to wait till it's all over, or I'm going to wait till the economy looks better, or I'm going to wait till I get my job back. If you delay yourself, time is money in business, but you don't get your 24 hours back as an individual. So the 24 hours that you invest in one day is gone the moment you wake up the next day. So if you're wasting, so far it's been like 4 months? 5 months? Yeah, it's hard to keep track.
The whole shutdown.
Imagine wasting 5 months saying, I'm going to wait till it gets better. Change will never wait for you. Time will never wait for you. If you take hold and in charge of that time, and that change, and you start investing in yourself, you've got to invest in yourself daily. That's just what it is. Whether it's health, whether it's mindset, whether it's learning, whether it's your growth in personal or business worlds, you have to invest in yourself on a daily basis. It's like the simple thing, I've got 2 plants in my office, and my boss says I'm in charge of those plants. I'm not a green thumb, but I know that I go every day, I put my finger in the dirt to see if it's wet. That's my last thing I do every day I leave. If I don't tend those plants, they're going to die. So if you don't tend to your personal self and your growth as an individual, you're going to basically die in regards to this becoming stagnant and going nowhere. And that profits nobody, and it doesn't profit you at all.
Yeah, well, I think one of the most important principles that you can understand, and once you do understand, opens up a whole new world, is the idea of compound interest, right?
Yes.
We all understand compound interest as, hey, you put some money in a savings account, and if you're lucky, depending on who you bank with, you make 2% every single year, and then over time, that 2% actually makes money, and it makes money, it makes even more money, right? But you have to understand, compound interest applies to everything, not just money. It applies to relationships.
Yeah.
It applies to your skill set. It applies to money. It applies to exercise, health, right? So though that time that you're spending that you may not feel is profitable, that it compounds on itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Bruce Lee who said he does not fear the person who's done 1,000 kicks. He fears the person who's done one kick 1,000 times for like over the course of 1,000 days. One kick per day is basically what he was getting at. And it's because that consistency, it compounds over time, right? I could do 1,000 kicks right here, and my kicks will get worse and worse, right? Because I'll run out of energy. It won't be that good. But one a day, with that space, I'll get better and better and better and better, and my education increases and it compounds on itself. That's why a lot of the times you see you have people who have been in, and especially like in your real estate industry, right? The people who have been in it in a while, all that experience compounds on itself over time, and it opens up doors that they would never have had.
Oh.
Whereas the new people, you're a little bit newer. You don't have those doors. You don't have those opportunities. You haven't had that time to compound on it on itself, right? If you took if you're studying a skill or whatever it is, and let's say 1 hour is one measurable unit of return, whether it be education, fat burn off, whatever your goal is, right? If you do like 1 unit one day and 1 unit the next day, you get 2 units, right? That math kind of makes sense. But the more consistently you do it, say you do it for 5 days, then your return is 7 units. So it's the same amount of time, but you get even more off of it. And so that applies with everything that you're doing. And so, when you're sitting on all this time, this 5 months, if you haven't done anything those 5 months, or if you're using it as an excuse, that actually it means massive. It influences your future massively, because one little change right here could drastically affect your future in 10 years. And so when you have 5 months of opportunity, that could drastically affect yourself in 10, 15, 20 years. Yeah. But at the same, it's power that goes both ways. It's a double-edged sword. If you're not doing anything right now, then that also is going to affect yourself massively in 10 years, or 15 years, or 20 years, or whatever it is. So you really have to understand that compound interest doesn't only apply to money. It especially applies to time, skill, physicality, exercise, all of it.
And I think one of the important things to remember, kind of as Chase and I are talking about a growth mindset within the pandemic, is the fact that, everyone's looking for success. But before success can begin, I guess financial success, you've got to begin with personal success and investing in yourself. I think that I don't want people to walk away from this podcast saying, oh man, I'm not going to even touch, this growth mindset, because you got to be financially successful in order to have a growth mindset. No, you've got to invest in yourself constantly as an individual, so that one day can relate and open up doors for you in, I guess, success in business, or where you are looking for success or defining success. I'll give you an example about compound interest, or that idea is exactly 12 or 11 months ago. I was working at a coffee shop, and I was working multiple jobs just to survive. And like I was mentioning prior to that, I reached out to an individual and I said, I'm just sick of working hard. You can work hard, again, and I'm giving myself an example, but I was working hard in the wrong direction. I was literally just working hard in a circle and going not far. And I started looking elsewhere. I started trying to figure out different ways on how to grow as an individual. Emailed that broker, and he told me to get my license. I don't work with that broker. He was just someone who I reached out to, and he gave me a bit of just a very simple, get your license, it'll change your life. And anyways, I continued working out or working my jobs and trying to figure out how to kind of get success in life. And a door opened up for me. And it was a complete opportunity to be able to work for a gentleman who develops real estate. And that's what I do now. I work in real estate development. But what I'm trying to say is, a year ago, I was working multiple jobs and really going nowhere. But that hard work, that consistency, and knowing that one day it'll all click, finally clicked. But I was always searching. That was the biggest thing, is I was always searching, and I wasn't waiting for the day to happen. I knew it wasn't going to happen unless I did something. And I put myself in a circumstance that opened a door, but I didn't do that myself. But I had never stopped looking. And because of that, that's what I feel like kind of the door opened for me to be able to step in an opportunity and begin a career. Within that 12-month time, I went from working at a coffee shop and making barely any money to being able to move up and grow with the company significantly in such a short time, have responsibilities, and on top of it, I've also got my real estate license and I'm moving forward in real estate on top of what I do for real estate development. But that all compounded. My days, and I work long days, I work 12-hour days, 5 days a week. That dedication and that putting in that time and effort and working every day and learning every day, having an open mindset. When my boss hired me, he says, treat every day like it's grad school, which means to me is I'm going to be learning so much every day. Let me tell you how many times I have been overwhelmed on a constant basis, because I'll walk into meetings or have to do something for the city, or when we're building massive developments, it is overwhelming, especially to someone who's not even involved in this industry. But I didn't quit. I didn't say this, I don't know this, I don't have a degree in this, I don't know it, or I'm not capable of this or certified to do this. No, I threw all those negative thoughts that were in my head, and I put them aside and I said, no, I'm going to figure this out one step at a time. I'm going to work through the overwhelming feeling that is only temporary. Remember, overwhelming feelings happen, but it's only a temporary feeling, and grow. And because I was dedicated to that job and the opportunity I had, I look back a year ago from where I was spinning in circles to now growing with the company, developing properties and working in real estate. It's amazing how a short period of time I have grown so much as an individual, as well as within a career, that it 100% compounding interest does happen as long as you're dedicated and you apply yourself every single day. Just like Chase was saying, rather than doing 1,000 kicks one day, practicing it every single day, you'll become a better person. You'll master a skill, master a thought process, whatever it might be, and be successful in life.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a couple of things that actually really stood out to me in what you were just saying now. And I'm just curious, you mentioned that, you have all of these probably doubts. You got thrown into a brand new industry. You got given a ton of responsibility up front, but you still made the choice to kind of push through and not let the for lack of a better term, the negative opportunity, right? Being put in those situations where you felt it was very easy to fail. Yeah. You put that aside and still continued to actually move positively.
Yeah.
What exactly was kind of going through your mind? Do you recall? Like, did you just decide, like, no, I'm going to ignore the negativity and just move forward? What exactly was kind of going on?
Yeah, it's a great question, Chase. A lot was kind of going through in my mind. I have always, ever since I've been, when you and I were growing up together and we would have sleepovers when we were like 8 or 9, because we're best friends, we would always talk about business.
True.
Always. We've been business partners. We've done multiple things together. We've always explored things. I was a part of Chase's team at one point for that vitamin.
Oh gosh, yeah.
But the thing is, like, we're best pals, and we love business. We love just talking about business and being successful in that way. That we've always just thrown ideas off each other, and we were always intrigued, and we always wanted to try. That was the biggest thing, is we always wanted to try. And I always knew I wanted to be successful. I didn't know how, but I have goals in my own personal life that I want to achieve financially, and I've always kept those in the back of my pocket. It's kind of like those dream boards. I think about it almost every day as I prepare my days and my goals throughout the day to see what I can achieve. So that's probably the foremost leading
Like motivation
behind it.
Okay.
And then like on a personal note too, there was different parts of my life where people told me they've given up on me in me ever being successful, and let me tell you what, that was like an anchor deep down. And you know when people were like, you're always kind of running from those demons, you know what I mean? It's that thought and that like gut punch. It was just a sucky feeling knowing that people have given up on you ever becoming successful. And having that goal to be successful in life, and then people who don't even know you tell you they've given up on you, fuels the fire so incredibly much that it drives you to be even more successful to prove wrong. I'm not saying that is good at all. I'm just explaining like my mindset behind it all. And so having those kind of two twining, that's not the right word, but those two ideas kind of coexisting in my mind of goals, and then this thought of, I know there are people out there that think I'll never be successful. I mean, it just amps up what I want to be in life and be that success. But I think the third biggest thing is, we always talk about success, we always want it, and to be pulled into a company by, again, I have a great opportunity. I'm completely beyond blessed to have the opportunity to have. But the gentleman that I work for is the definition of success, like the most tangible definition of success in my life in regards to someone I know who I've seen his portfolio and know how successful this gentleman is. To be mentored by someone like that and to work under him every single day and to see the proof is in the pudding also drives you. So in those days when I literally had to walk into a subcontractor's office, bring everyone into a meeting room, and I came unannounced because there was things going down. My boss told me, you're going to go in there where we have to have a serious conversation because they're doing things wrong with our project. And I'm in the job like 4 weeks. They don't know me. They've known, like, I've had a conversation with them, and I'm supposed to walk in there like I know what I'm doing and literally go to every single person and say, we need to have a serious talk. And apparently, and talk about issues in the project that I don't even really have a vocabulary yet because it's all construction or development. And I was freaking out. The drive down was just nerve-wracking. Palms are sweaty. It was the worst feeling. And I wanted to not go at all. I even almost stayed in my car and said there was an accident. Like, I wanted to make every excuse in the world to not do it. But I just dug in there. I kept my feet planted, and I really, at some point, sometimes you gotta fake it till you make it, and that's not the right way of saying it, but you've just gotta hope for the best. Do it even though it feels uncomfortable, because I'll tell you what, after I left that office and I was able to pull off something that my boss wanted me to do, only being 3 weeks in the job, felt 1,000 times better knowing I accomplished that task than the feeling I would have had if I failed it and said I'm not going in. I wouldn't have had a job, first of all. Second of all, failure, basically what I'm trying to say is stick with the problem that you're feeling. It's temporary. And the longer you stick with it, the more successful you'll be. And having that feeling of panic, that feeling of stress, that feeling of anxiety, remember, feelings are all temporary. They're all temporary. And so within a moment of time after you accomplish those things, it's going to fill you up with so much confidence for your next big task. And a year later, I don't get that nervous feeling anymore. Was it a lot to learn? Yes. Do I learn every single day? Yes. Are my days still somewhat overwhelming? Yes. But I've seen how much it has changed my life financially and professionally, that, man, to be mentored by someone who has that success, has gone through the same shoes that I've been. He's had to go over those hurdles every single day and be nervy in order to make more money, etc. And so I think about that, and I think about who I'm being mentored. I'm thinking about the people I'm trying to prove wrong to show that I'm successful. And I'm just trying to grow and achieve those goals in my life. And I'm telling you what, it's going to be scary. Yes, it's going to be scary. But if you realize, you know what, I think the scary thing is failure. That's the biggest thing for me, was I was afraid I was going to walk in there and look like a complete fool and fail. But at the end of the day, if I went in there, and even if I did fail, my boss would have said, hey, at least you tried. Thank you. Tomorrow's a new day. And I'm not going to get fired. But no, it ended up being even better because I was able to succeed and do what I was called to do in that specific setting. So just continue pushing. Don't be afraid of failure, and fight those temporary feelings. Don't let those feelings define your mindset and define your actions every single day, because they're temporary. The next morning you wake up, it's going to be a new day, different mindset, and you're going to grow from accomplishing those hard, quote unquote, obstacles you went through the day before.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm actually working on I'm producing another video right now on confidence and stuff like that, and exactly what you were saying is perfect, because the way that you build confidence in yourself and self-esteem is actually by facing your fears, right? So you actually, what happens is that you get a fear, right? You're like, oh, this is uncomfortable, this is outside my comfort zone. Your habit is to avoid it, right? To avoid the discomfort. However, it's when you actually overcome that obstacle and actually face that fear, regardless of the outcome, actually, just facing that fear will actually give you a boost. Because what's actually happening in your mind is actually your conscience is actually ruling over your subconscious, which is the way it's actually supposed to be in most cases. But we just live in a subconscious-dominated world where the subconscious kind of runs everything. But it's when your conscience actually overrides the subconscious. That's when you increase your self-esteem, you increase your confidence, and that compounds on itself and leads to you being able to do other things, just like you were talking about. Like after that meeting, I'm sure everything else was a lot easier, right?
Yeah, especially in that aspect. I mean, and there's so many variables about developing, but Chase is so true. Chase and I, when we used to have an old podcast, and we talked about learning to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I think about that saying almost every day. No matter where you're at, it's kind of like, the best thing I can say is that the currency for growth is pain.
Yeah,
and it's
absolutely.
the honest truth, whether it's physical for working out or just this that feeling of going through something like fear. Learn to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, and you will grow. And let me tell you, just personally, I've grown so much in this job in this past year, even through COVID-19, and I'm going to continue to do so. I'm not going to let circumstances let me self-destruct. That's the biggest thing. You guys got to realize too, before the pandemic happened, a lot of you guys were on a roll. You guys had momentum. So why are you going to let a pandemic stop your momentum of growth personally? Let's put aside jobs for right now and just talk about personal. Everyone is growing at some point in their life, and a lot of people were on such a momentum of growth for 2020, and then it all kind of derailed because of the pandemic. But don't let something affect or define you, and you stopping growing as a person yourself.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. It kind of just all kind of comes back to, I mean, it's exactly what we're talking about, right? Your mindset behind it, where it's very tempting, and even the world is actually a bit more enabling. Is enabling you to have and hold on to that mindset. But the reality is that the people who are successful are actually going to be using this time to pivot, not to stop. Yeah. So, and I see this in a lot of entrepreneurs that I follow, is, they do a lot of these conferences and stuff like that, and they're not like stopping their life or stopping their education or anything like that. They're just pivoting. They're just changing the trajectory a little bit. Yeah. They're adapting, I think, is the big thing, is they're adapting to it as opposed to allowing it to stop them. Mm-hmm. And, this time is really, really important for you, for your future, and it all just kind of compounds on itself, and it really means a lot to your future self that you adapt that growth mindset and that you actually leverage the time that you have right now for your future self. I mean, all I can say is that your future self will be very, very thankful that you were able to do that. I think to myself, that people ask that question, what could you tell yourself, if you went back to when you were 20 or, 20 years ago, what would you tell yourself? And you actually can kind of have that moment right now. It's like, if you think objectively, if you kind of remove yourself from your feelings, okay, if I was 20 years older, what would I have what would I have had my older self do that I would be proud of? And then you just do that thing. You know, your older self will be thankful, right? Because you can dive into, you know, the constructs of time and stuff like that, and you kind of unravel it a little bit and kind of get out of the present. But I think there's a lot of value in being able to remove yourself from the present and operating in the future.
Yeah, no, I think one of the great things you just spoke about was pivot. A lot of industries or a lot of people go outdated because they don't keep up with technology. And I know we kind of bash technology a little bit in the beginning. Technology is it's a necessity. You just got to be careful with it, especially in this industry. But you've got to learn to adapt to the changes in order to grow, right? That we hear that all the time, whether it's in real estate, whether it's being a business owner. If you don't adapt with what the economy wants, what the mass of people want, you know, you are not going to be a successful business owner, right? And so you need to change. It's kind of like if you didn't change your prices from 20 years ago, you would never make it now because the cost of living and everything has gone up the roof. So it's like you've always got to be pivoting in different directions to always continue growing, and no matter what position you are in life. I just want to share a few examples of things that I have done during the pandemic. This is not to, you know, like show, oh wow, I've done this. It's just to give you guys some encouragement that it can be done. Hope, yeah, and just kind of be an example. That's why, you know, Chase and I are so like-minded, and we always been great friends, and we want to go on this podcast together because we always are striving to be better than we were yesterday, and that's the honest truth. And now we just kind of throw in this pandemic in the mix, and everyone's facing the same pandemic. And so it's just been a great opportunity to hopefully be a light to you guys. That's honestly why we're doing this podcast, and share with you guys that even though everyone else is saying it's okay to do nothing, it's not okay to do nothing for yourself and for your future self. So it's been a rough year for me. It's been, you know, the pandemic has been rough. There's a lot of personal things that have happened in my life that have been rough. And, you know, I'm not going to go into like any detail of that, but it's been a hard year. This is plain and simple. If you were to look at my life, a lot of people could say, oh yeah, you have an excuse not to like get that far this year. You've had a rough one. That's just obstacles in life. But I didn't let any of those obstacles, especially the pandemic, define my growth this year. Since January, I began working out. A lot of people are like, well, the gyms are closed, so I'm not going to work out. It's a little example. That's very true. I've been to the gym 3 times since since then they reclosed them. That was it. Yet I still maintain healthy eating, and I worked out on my own, whether it was running, bike riding, and I work 60 hours a week. I was still able to maintain it. I've lost 30 pounds since January. That's one example, you know. Another example is the fact that I wanted to learn a new activity. I wanted to do something with my life that was new to me. And it was something kind of simple. It was more of a sport, but I learned how to kite surf during the pandemic. And that sounds kind of fun and silly and stuff like that, because it is. And that's kind of my avenue of breaking away from my hectic work week. But I didn't let myself not enjoy life because of a pandemic. That's something I wanted to share with you guys. Enjoy life. Do things that are fun. Learn to do new things that are fun. I did it. I've learned how to kite surf in the ocean. Just because the pandemic happened doesn't mean I'm going to wait a year to learn something I want to learn now. If it's safe and you feel safe doing it, go ahead and do it. Another example is my license. I passed my real estate license exam 2 weeks ago. You know, I have all the excuses in the world besides having a hectic work week every week, or I shouldn't say hectic, but I work 12-hour days. I have all the time to say, oh, I'm too busy to do that. Or, man, it's COVID-19 and I'm sure they're not going to be doing testing. Well, it's funny that they actually closed testing the week after I tested, so I'm super thankful that happened.
Dang.
And everything was safe. We all wore masks, but there's so much happening in my industry with real estate that it's been overwhelming to pivot into a new direction and continue growing for development. And that carries a lot of stress from work to home and etc. And so that, you know, could take an effect on studying, but it didn't. Yeah, it took me a little bit longer time to study for my test, but it was that dedication and never stopping and taking chunk by chunk to finally accomplishing my goal of getting a license. So in a short period of time, where it's half the year is almost over, but I've achieved so many goals just in those 3 areas that I wanted to grow in, from learning a new hobby that's fun and enjoying, losing weight and being healthy, and accelerating myself in the future that I want, in the career that I love and I want to grow with. And I didn't let a pandemic or the hardships that I had in my personal life stop me from attaining those things. So I just share those with you guys because that's more of a personal level, but I want to let you guys know it's possible, it's doable. I have a smile on my face because I am genuinely happy. Life's going to throw you some hard curveballs. I'm telling you, hard ones. I went through a couple this year alone, outside of just this pandemic. And then this pandemic is just a dark cloud over all those bad things. Yet I didn't let that define who I am. Instead, I was like, okay, sometimes these days suck, but I'm going to pick myself up. I'm going to dig. I'm going to grind. I'm going to invest in myself. And I'm walking away so much better. Part of my mind has been like healed, not in regards to like thought process, and even becoming healthier has helped so much more in different areas of my life. And then when you build different aspects of your life, like health, happiness, then that even gives you more confidence into building professionally, like I am in my job, and it makes me so much more happier to continue digging. I love my job, but applying those 2 little aspects have made me love my job even more. I don't know why, but they feed into it, and you kind of build this pyramid of a structure to give you the most momentum and most benefit to achieving success, no matter what success you define, or no matter what you define success as being in your personal life.
Yeah, no, you have been through a lot this year. You have accomplished a lot. It's been quite a year, but yeah, again, it all comes down. It's not, the facts don't determine your life. It's how we interpret the facts that determines the course of our life. And every little decision, or I shouldn't say every little decision, but the way you spend your day really does affect your next month, your next year, your next decade, your entire life. It really does matter. So we really, really want to point you in the direction of actually leveraging this time to focus on developing and maintaining a growth mindset, and ultimately just leveraging this time to benefit the rest of your life, because there's going to be a lot of people coming out of 2020 and maybe even 2021 with this being the worst year of their life. But how crazy would it be for those who have a different mindset, have that growth mindset, to be able to come out of 2020 and 2021 with that was the year where everything changed, and it was a good change because I was able to take it and turn it into something positive, and I now see the repercussions looking back, 10, 20 years later. I see the repercussions from it, and it's the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
That could be your story. Yeah. I can't promise that it will, but that could be your story if you actually take what you have and make it better right now.
Yeah, it's 100% true. One thing we can promise you, though, is that it can be a year of change. You don't know what that change might be, but as long as you are dedicated to changing some part of your life and investing in yourself, it will change. So hopefully you can view that 2020, which I think will really go down into history, as being a year of change and growth for yourself. It's right now, amongst a pretty crappy year, I feel like I'm definitely on top. And I'm not letting the crappy circumstances define my year. In fact, those 3 variables, which there's going to be so much more as we're heading into the end of the year that I'm accomplishing, like investments and all sorts of stuff that I'm just doing in my personal life, it's going to be the definition of my year, that I can finally be one of the few people, and you guys can be many of the few people, and hopefully the majority of the people that say, I didn't let that crappy year define my year. No, all my growth and my persistence and being okay with being uncomfortable, no matter what I was trying to do to grow myself, it defined my year as so many accomplishments personally, hopefully for whatever area you're striving to gain success in. And the only person that's going to stop that growth is you. So don't. I think one of the biggest things you guys can do, or a tip you guys can do if you don't know where to go in regards to, what should you invest your time or your energy in, is literally take your phone or a piece of paper and write down some areas in your life. We all have areas we would like to change. And just write down a few. And pick something that you can do no matter the circumstances throughout this pandemic. And start chipping away at it every single day. Applying 5 minutes a day. Applying more time later as the time goes on. But just take one thing that you want to change or grow or something that you're interested in and learn, and just choose one. And invest some time every single day. And hopefully that 5 minutes builds to 15 minutes to half an hour to an hour. And you're going to see that because you took that pen and paper and wrote down some areas in your life you wanted to grow, and you were dedicated to just choosing one, 6 months from now, a week from now, you're going to be a different person in that specific area, and you're going to be proud because you did that.
Your confidence will go up, your self-esteem will go up, and you're actually, right then and there, you'll actually figure out the secret to success is just dedication, consistency, because that all kind of is encompassed in the compound interest aspect.
Yeah.
So I think that'll be a wrap.
Yeah, guys. Continue to grind. Continue to invest in yourself. That's honestly the best thing. Chase and I have invested in ourselves for so many years. Yeah. We've hit a lot of roadblocks together. Personally, we haven't stopped. Nope. We don't stop.
No.
It almost gives us the fire. Like, even though when we hit like roadblocks, like, okay, that's all right. We're gonna figure out the way around it.
Yeah. I mean, there's always like we're human, right? We always, when we hit the roadblock, when we hit the obstacle, there's always that sudden drop in your stomach where you're like, oh man, maybe this is it. Maybe we weren't cut out for this.
Yeah.
But guess what? We pivot. You don't go at it directly. You pivot. You change. Maybe you go around it. And you're all the better for it. And over time, when you do that consistently, you can actually look back and realize, oh, hey, that decision led to this one, which led to this one, and that was actually good, that was healthy, that's led me here. I can take that construct and apply it in the future, and you kind of get excited for what you're doing right now, because you're like, oh, this is going to be huge in a couple of years.
And when you see the potential, it's so fun. It's fun. And you just want to work harder.
Yeah, well, as soon as exactly. Especially like in self-development, when you kind of you solve one problem and you're like, you kind of realize, oh my gosh, I can solve my own problems. I can, just a little mindset, just a little information can actually shift something in my mind to make me so much happier, more productive, more fulfilled. It can be addicting. It's addicting, and it's a good addiction.
Yeah, it is.
That's good.
And also remember, the building blocks that you have in your pocket, your personality, your strengths as an individual, utilize those as you figure out exactly on that pen and paper what you want to grow in. You don't have to go out and learn a whole new trade. No, utilize what you have first here so that you can invest 110% in whatever you're trying to grow in. And I'm telling you, that will save you a lot of time, but utilizing your strengths as a person that into something that you're growing, you start to enjoy it because you're like, man, I'm pretty good at this, or man, I'm made for this. It's because you're utilizing your talents and your building blocks that you have at your hand instead of chasing something else that you might have to learn down the road, it's a good thing to do so. But while you're at home, while there's a pandemic, utilize everything that you have at your hand and start with yourself and then invest in yourself and grow.
Yeah, I think a very important principle to live by is start with what you have, perfect it before you ask for more, right? You have time, you have energy, you have health. Take what you have, double down on it, maximize its potential before you ask for more, right? It's easy for us to be like, oh, I wish I had $100,000 or $250,000 salary, but you're still wasting your time, right? You're still playing video games all day long or watching TV all day long or something like that. Take that time you have right now, maximize its potential, and then eventually you'll actually get that. But you have to be efficient and professional with what you've been given primarily. Yeah. Because if you take what you've been given and it's little and you can't make anything of it, then if you're given a lot, you'll make even less of it. So don't fall into that mental trap of, oh, I'll be able to do something as long as I have more. No. Those habits, that mindset, that structure, that starts now. So take the time, perfect that, adapt that growth mindset, and you'll be able to fulfill your dreams. You'll be able to turn your dreams into real life goals that you'll be able to accomplish.
100%. Couldn't end it on a better note.
Yeah. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you.
This will be on a podcast. This is gonna, if you guys are watching on YouTube, this is our first YouTube video doing something like this. So I would be very, I'm very curious on your guys' take on it. So please don't hesitate. Leave a comment down below. just like kind of like giving us an idea of what you liked, what you didn't like. Maybe we can take a look at it and make some tweaks. We're very open.
We want to grow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. We want to grow. We're not shy. We want to grow. We want to get better. And if you let me try that one over again. If you are interested in maximizing your true potential, if you want to turn your dreams into real life goals, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, where we produce at least one video every single week that takes you from where you are and puts you where you want to be. So guys, thank you so much. Thank you, Andrew, for being on.
Thanks for letting me on.
Hopefully you can participate more.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah, because this is our passion. As much as we have our businesses and professions outside of this is our passion, and this is something that we love doing. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in, and we wish you the best of luck. Keep
grinding.
Keep grinding. Thank you. I was gonna say keep working, but keep grinding sounds better. All right, bye guys.